Hello, and welcome back to the Big Bad Bench. As you might be aware, if you have subscribed to this channel, I have recently 16 compact Macintoshes, and I've started the restoration process on a handful of them. Um, but um, well, I've started delving in deeper, and so here are some of the Mac Pluses. And on my last stream, I went in and I finished the restoration of one of those Mac Pluses. Um, so since then, I started checking out some of the other ones, and I started finding some bad stuff. So I didn't think that these ones were typically really bad for corrosion issues, but let's show you what I found inside this first one. And so here's what I'm calling Mac Plus number 2. And when you pop this open, you can see some nice corrosion. And so I had actually seen a similar corrosion pattern in the one I had already restored, but I thought that was sort of an anomaly, but apparently not. And so this is what we're dealing with this guy. So I want to get this thing disassembled and see how extensive some of this corrosion is, and check out some more of them. If we look in the battery terminal, you can see that there's some green crustiness, and that it kind of spread around the terminal. But let's jump into this and go a little more. So I'm gonna pull out the motherboard. So if we look at the motherboard, there are some slight rust spots that have transferred onto the motherboard, but they're not awful. So I don't think we're dealing with any major electronic issues on this one. It's reasonably clean. Yeah, so I think we're gonna be good with this one. Set the board aside. And let's start taking this bad boy apart. Sorry. And if anyone hops on and has audio issues, let me know. I tried to move some things around to try to get rid of some of the noise we were getting with the power supplies when these things are open. So the last Mac Plus that I had was one of the newer revisions, and it was a platinum, and so the color of the plastic was a lot, more platinumy, more clear whitish. The other big difference was that this protective plastic piece was held on with the little stud things, and this one has the double-sided tape, which kind of sucks. This. Anode was very stuck. seems to have a bleed resistor. I wasn't sure how old these things were when they started adding bleed resistors to the anodes. Neck. Oops. Ground. The other distinction I just noticed is I think that the ground strap on here was held on with a regular machine screw thread on the other ones, and this one has a like a sheet metal screw. You can see that the caps on these old ones, like, well, I think all the Mac Pluses, super high quality. It's kind of interesting when you look at these things. Alright, this is a 1000 microfarad 16 volt cap compared to, let's see if we have one here. Well, just for comparison, this is a more modern 22 microfarad 16 volt cap, and it's like half of the total volume. So these old caps had a ton of volume. I think that's why they generally were more reliable than the newer versions. But anyway, you can see that the board actually looks pretty decent for the most part. There is a bunch of corrosion around the battery holder, but it really hasn't transferred onto the board too much. So this should be a nice basic. We'll do a little bit of a cleaning with vinegar, and it should be good to go. Okay, our floppy looks decent. A little bit of dust down in there, but it's not bad. But the main issue is this case. Screw. Yeah, so you can see that the corrosion sort of wrapped around there. Got in real good inside where the motherboard goes and stuff. So basically what I'm going to have to do is hit this with some rust remover, and then I come back and hit it with a wire wheel. You can see that it kind of goes around the edge too. There are a few little rust spots in the around the chassis, so I might wind up hitting this on more than just this side over here. So let's set that aside. Oh, yeah, the other thing to notice is what happened inside the case. And so you see how it's kind of uneven. Look at that. All that little metal coating that they put on the inside. I don't know if it's an EMI filter that they paint that for, but it's all coming off on the inside there, so that's gonna have to get all cleaned out. Maybe I'll see if there's another paint that you can use that would accomplish a similar task. Alright, so that was machine 2. I'm gonna call this one machine 3. This one I haven't even taken the battery door off yet. Oh, this one actually has the battery in it. Look at that. Okay, this is one of those number 5, 2, 3, 4.5 volts that these things take. Let's see if there's any charge left in that beast. Wow, 0.6 volts, almost 0.7. That's pretty impressive. Is there a date on this? Yeah, I don't see a date. That's fun. But there's only very minor corrosion inside this battery holder, so hopefully that's a sign of positive things to come. So I don't have a fancy Mac cracker. This is my iFixit screwdriver with the extension. Oh, sorry. You can see this system is pretty yellowed. There was some kind of sticker on there that had protected some of the color, so we can kind of get a sense for its color. Oh. Well, that screw's gone to nowhere. On the inside here, you can see that this is actually in really good shape. This looks kind of perfect on the inside. That's nice. Look in this one. Something to notice here is that we actually might have a bad cap at the top of there, and so I just mentioned how stable these old caps seem to be, but looks like we might have a bad one. The Rifas here actually look pretty good compared to a lot of Rifas I've seen. This one actually looks like it's relatively brand new. There are cracks in the other ones, so this Y cap is in really good shape. This one's a little cracked, and the X is a little cracked. Let's pop off the motherboard. Let's see what we're working with on the motherboard. Okay, so these are 256K sims, so they're all gonna be. There's another 1 meg machine. The motherboard is reasonably clean. It's a little dusty, but not much in the way of corrosion. In the other one, there was some stuff around the back part here. So let's call this system number 3. I want to try to make sure that all these get back to where their original partners, if possible. It might happen that some of the parts are too destroyed to recover, so I might have to sort of assemble things from multiple systems, but where possible I'd like to keep the original systems all together. So let's set the motherboard aside. Number 3. And the Sharpie will come off with alcohol, so you don't have to worry about writing. I wouldn't write on the front, but writing in areas that you're not going to see, it should come off pretty easily. Again, this is the older version, so it's going to have the double-sided tape holding it together. Does look like that glue around the flyback transformer is a little crusty. Take off our yoke and neck board. One of the main issues that we tend to see with Mac Pluses is cracked solder joints on some of these larger regions, or larger solder joints. This one looks pretty good. There might be, there's probably a little crack in that one. Don't really see much in the flyback transformer. Oh, it kind of looks like, I don't know if my lighting will show you here, but it kind of looks like there's some melted solder here. I think somebody might have been in here at some point and touched up the solder, reflowed that. Okay. Oh. I forgot to check the previous one. Look for its solder joints. Yeah, it's gonna need some touch-ups around here. Maybe that one, that one. Generally doesn't look too bad. Yeah, look at that. Look at this cap on this one on number 3. That is domed. I think there might be a little bit of gross stuff coming out the bottom. Not too bad. But the board itself looks really good. And you can see that the battery holder is the nicest one I've seen so far. This floppy's pretty crusty in there. That's going to be a good cleanup job. Grab a test floppy. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's some gumminess. This isn't the worst one I've ever felt, but not a great floppy. Alright, set that aside. So we can see that this chassis is actually in decent shape. This part is a little dirty, but it's not bad. There's a couple little rust spots here and there. So we'll hit up those little spots and hit them with the little wire wheel. I think for this one, it's the rust spots are so minor that we'll be able to just touch it up with a little bit of rust remover and then with a wire wheel and a little Dremel versus the big wire wheel for my standing grinder. But yeah, overall this one was in much better shape. So let's set that one aside. It's going to be system number 4. This one's missing its battery cover. Oh. I don't know if you can make that out. So these fold back over that way, and that little fold thing is totally missing. So that makes me wonder about how much corrosion we're seeing in this one. Oh, we're also missing screws in this one. This one is very orange. If we look inside there, you can see that there's some mess. It's kind of interesting that this one is painted with a different kind of material. It's not that shiny paint that was on the inside of that other one that had flaked off. So it's a very different structure. But that corrosion's going to have to be cleaned up. Yeah, now as we pull this off, you can see there's corrosion around the SCSI port. Throw that away. I'm not going to throw it away. We can see we have corrosion getting down there on the chassis. Oh, and this one actually uses the little studs. I was surprised because that's interesting. I thought only the platinums did that, unless this one's actually a platinum and it's that orange, which, hey, it might have happened that way. Crazy little stud. Doesn't want to come off. Good thing is that these screws are not as corroded as some of the other ones from the bad pluses. Anode is very sticky on this one. Take off our yoke. Take off our neck board. Is it called a neck board if it's just a little tiny connector like that? sunken machine screw in there. Little studs, you can push the little middle part and get it out easier if you can reach it from the other side. Sometimes it helps to use a little persuasion. Alright, so let's see what's hiding under here. Oh. It looks like someone was already in this one as well. You can see that there's some flux around these solder joints. Interestingly, these all look like they could use a little hit with some reflow. Flyback transformer looks decent. Yeah, this power connector could use a reflow. So they came in and did some work on this one, but they missed some of the important bits. One of the interesting things, oh no. It's like, I don't know if they just reflowed these solder joints or if they put a new MOSFET there. It's kind of interesting. If that's a date code and it's 96 on that date code, that would be relatively new MOSFET for this kind of system. Right, because we can see date codes here. 18th week of 89 most likely. So at some point it looks like somebody had come in and done some work on this. I don't know if you noticed, here is a big Y cap, I guess. Or no, that's an X cap. And, you know, originally these would have refas in all three of those positions. And it looks like someone's come in and replaced it with a different one. So that's interesting. That's one less cap I theoretically have to replace. This power switch, wow. Look at that. Yeah. So you can see some minor corrosion around the battery terminals there. But yeah, this power switch is awful. Oh, I didn't number it. Which number are we up to here? Number 4. Alright, so what's our motherboard look like? Okay, so there was no screws on this one, so someone must have come in here and taken the RAM out. We can see this resistor's been cut that normally would be there if the sims are 256K sims. So if that's cut, it means they're 1 meg sims. So somebody had put 1 meg sims in here and then come back and taken them back out at some point. See some corrosion on the SCSI connector there. But the board itself actually looks really nice. Like it's relatively clean, so maybe this thing got taken out of service after it was repaired. Interesting history on this one. Dropping screws and stuff all over today. It isn't too nasty. It's in the down position. Oh yeah, that felt kind of gummy. Oh, it's not too awful. That one shouldn't be too bad to clean up. So this one's not too bad. You can see that there's some corrosion happening there. But yeah, it's kind of localized, hasn't reached real far into here. Only a little bit in the bottom. So this one might be okay with just some vinegar and a wire wheel. So I'll probably go easy on this one since the rust remover tends to be pretty brutal kind of stuff. I don't like to use it if I don't have to. Another thing I forgot to look at on the other ones was if you could see if there's burn-in. Yeah, this one you can kind of see that there's a little line in there that indicates there's most likely a little bit of burn-in there. Alright, so this one's going to be number 5. Oh, I forgot to label the floppy, which one? So this one was number 4. This one you can also make out a very faint line that there's most likely some burn-in on that screen. This one we're also missing screws. Our battery holder is not in great condition. There's a big crack in the battery holder. I'll find out after I soak it in a little bit of vinegar whether that's just in the coating or if that's actually a crack in the metal. One is also missing screws up at the top. I do try to be careful when I open these, since plastic tends to be kind of brittle. Inside of this one looks to be in good shape. Wow. Check out that cap. That's an old one. So if this is any indication, is that the date code on 86th week or 51st week of 86. This one had the motherboard already disconnected from power, so I don't know what that means. The battery or the floppy was also disconnected from the motherboard. And again, missing RAM, the resistor is severed, so this did have 1 meg SIMs in it. This motherboard is not in the worst condition, but it's dirty. It's not terrible. No major corrosion around the SCSI port or anything like that, so that all looks good. Oh, let's number this one. We're at number 5. Front of this chassis has that metal painting. Yeah, the back didn't. That's interesting. This one's real gooey. I'm definitely not going to touch it, if possible. Okay. have here? What the heck happened? Oh, geez. Alright, well, this one's kind of a mess. Oof. Oh, God. Alright. I know, sort of humorously on my thumbnail, I said we might have a good cry, but I think I might actually cry for what happened here. Let's pull off screws. Look how yellow this the plastic cover is. Oh, this one actually has the plastic studs, so it seems to be a newer analog board. Wow, look at the color of that adjustment knob. That is some brown. It's kind of consistently brown. Makes you wonder what kind of environment this was in. Doesn't really smell like cigarette smoke or anything that would normally make you think of turning the plastic that color. But look what we get here. Oh, Jesus. Okay, let's zoom in on this one. See that color? So first, you can see we have our little extensions that were installed here, but look at the charring around those power leads. I'm gonna pop on my soldering iron so I can disconnect this thing. So apparently somebody resoldered this this board on at some point. Okay, so let's pop off our stud. Zoom back out. Alright, let's see what we're looking at here. Okay, so this is interesting. So it originally had the cover on it that would have been double-sided taped on. Oof. Oh, look at this. These people were solderers of my skill level. So we have some sort of bodge wire that comes around over. Oh God, what the heck were they doing here? Yeah, so this is kind of a mess, huh? Yowza, people. What the heck were you thinking? It would be kind of funny if this was actually the... Wow. Yeah, if they tried to run that power off of this little wire. So, I guess they screwed up the solder pad and decided they had to run a little bodge wire. This one, oh yeah, there's the solder pad right here attached to my iron. Sorry, little solder pad. And some sort of bodge here. Glad I didn't plug this in and try to boot it before. Oh God. It's okay, little computer. We'll try to fix you. Okay, so I think we're disconnected now. Zoom out. There's this side. Some really beautiful charring. Someone butchered this one. Interestingly, look at our two Y caps here. Not Reefus. The big X cap is covered in schmutz, some kind of white powder. So that's gonna be nice to clean up. This board, it smells bad. You can see this thing's in pretty rough shape here. Let's set this aside for a minute. Get our floppy out. Still smell that analog board. They really charred the hell out of that thing. So this metal chassis bed is actually in really good shape. One tiny little rust spot there. So I'm only going to do a little tiny touch up on that one. Number 5. Okay, this is our number 5 chassis. So this thing's probably going to need some work. I might wind up coming back and testing this, all the rest of the parts from this one with a different screen, one that I can actually plug in. This thing, look at the color. There's so much soot on this neck board connector. That thing had a life. Alright, I'm running out of space in the lab. So this thing's pretty rank. Some nice crusty bits there. Let's see how it moves. Ooh, yeah, that one. Well, once it's in, but it almost feels like rusty on the inside as it's moving. Alright, so that one's gonna need some work. Alright, I labeled that one. Ugh. Let's check. This, yeah, the date code on there. Oh, I guess I might zoom in here. '26 week of '86. Is that from 1990? So this one, 89, 89. Seems like this one was a unit that, for number 4, it was kind of all assembled at the same time. It might have replaced the X cap, or the X cap. Yeah, let's look at the color of the brightness adjusters. That's wild. Yeah, so this poor guy had some work done to it. Lots of very disrupted solder pads. So let's see if we can get it cleaned up. It looks like the flyback transformer has been touched up quite a bit. You can see a lot of flux on there, on those solder joints. And you can see that the main power connector has been gone over. So this analog board it's seen some things. Hey Adam, how is it going? So let's sort of summarize what we've gone through for these. So we have 4 power supplies here. Oof. These 3 all look pretty good. Minor battery corrosion here. This power switch is kind of a mess, but it should be clean upable. This one, again, there's some corrosion around the battery connector. This one's already had its caps redone for the X and Y caps down there, so we don't have to worry about that. There is a little bit of corrosion here. You have an even dozen of compact Macs. See that? And people thought I was crazy for having 16, right? That's a perfectly normal amount. This analog board looks pretty good. It's got refas that need to be redone, but overall, there's this cap that's a little scary, but the battery holder is beautiful on this one. And then we have the analog board from number 5, which is just a freaking mess. So we'll see what happens. I'll go through and clean all this stuff up and try to make it not so ugly. So for the main chassis, number 5 actually, even though its analog board looks terrible, the main chassis looks pretty good. This was, oh geez, I already missed mine. Oh, here's number 3. This one's also in pretty good shape. Just a couple little rust spots there. That should be easy to clean up. This chassis is a mess. Bunch of corrosion there. Gonna have to spend some time taking care of all that. And then this one, which was out of number 2, was probably the worst main chassis. So this one's probably gonna need a real hardcore rust removal. This one might get by with just vinegar. We'll see what happens. Oof. Alright, so what time is it? Oh. You got a 512 that was buried in mud. Eesh. Was it like the one that they did at the, was that a Mac SE at VCF that they had buried from the previous one that they got booted back up? That one looked pretty gross, but I bet you it still worked. I haven't gone back and looked to see if they released any videos about that. Wow. Alright, rusty cage, but the board works. Yeah, I have a feeling that all these are going to be in pretty good shape. I have 4 boards that really are like, this one's pretty decent from number 5, even though the analog board was terrible. This one's in good shape. This one has its 256K RAM, Sims in there. This one has a little bit of corrosion around on the metal here, but the rest of this doesn't look too bad. It's a little bit, I think, on the switches here. A little bit of rust transferred over onto the board, but that shouldn't be too bad. We'll clean that up. Ooh. Alright, so it seems like the worst problem that I had was from the analog board in number 5. Yeah, most of the main boards look pretty darn good. I think the floppies are all going to be recoverable. Let's pop a couple of these apart and see what they look like. I have a little bit of time here. So with that extra 512 that you had encased in mud, was that part of your 12? Or is that a bonus number 13? Yeah, if you hear your floppy drive whirring and whirring, it's most likely an issue with that eject mechanisms. This one looks pretty good. Actually, I guess I should number this. Yeah, you probably don't want to put the mud one on the shelf with the other ones. So before I ever use floppy drives, I like to take them apart and take a look at what's going on inside the eject mechanisms. Set that aside. This floppy is remarkably clean. Look at that. The grease is a little bit firm, but that's not bad. Alright, so these eject mechanisms, if you've never taken one apart, I'm sure Adam has, but in case somebody else comes along and sees one of these, I like to use tiny little screwdriver tip, and you want to pry this, like we do with all of our old Mac plastics. Be careful with it because the plastics are going to be brittle, and so come as close to the far edge as you can and just pry up a little bit. This one's a little firm, so I'm going to be really careful with it. When the plastic really doesn't want to bend, that's a pretty good indication that you're likely gonna break it. Okay, so I just used the pliers to release that a little bit. Definitely don't want to bend those more than you have to. Oh wow, gears in this actually look really nice. So normally when you pop these open, there's a big green spot where the brass motor gear is sort of corroded up against this first gear. So we're gonna pull this off. So I try to use some tweezers to just gently bring it up a little bit and then try to get up underneath of it and slide that out. then, I know this isn't probably the totally right way to do it, but it's the way that I've been doing it, and they seem to turn out generally pretty well. So this is a 3-in-1 oil container, but I've replaced the oil with Mobil 1. Mobil 1 is a synthetic oil, so it tends not to dry out like old oils tend to do. So like a lot of times when you see oil spots on things, like, you know, when the grease gets all stiff, that's from the oil basically sort of separating out into its phases, and the some of the stuff evaporates, and the other stuff is basically like wax and looks dried out. But Mobil 1 should theoretically never do that. So that's why I like to, you know, once I use up my 3-in-1 oil from, you know, lubing doors and stuff like that, I fill it back up with Mobil 1, and then use it for new lubrications. So when I come in, I like to get some oil on this pinion gear to start out with and spin that around. Then I use my tweezers to clean it out a little bit. Use my tweezers to clean out some of this old grease, because it is basically kind of wax at this point, and this, you don't want that wax in there. You can see it's really gummy, and so when your lubricant turns into essentially glue, it's going to cause some issues for your eject mechanism. Let me go grab a thing of grease. Just give the gear, this first gear, a nice little inspection, make sure nothing's really messed up. Clean off my tweezers and then use those to transfer just a little dab of grease down into here, inside the shaft, down on that mating surface. So then I like to just turn it gently, make sure it's not gonna bind or anything. So this feels pretty smooth. This feels very nice and smooth. This gear, you can see there's some grease on there. Like before, I'm going to use my tweezers to apply a little bit down in there. Nice. grease on the gears. Shouldn't really put a ton. And so I'm going to use this gear to sort of turn things and double check to make sure we're not bound. You don't want to like turn this because it puts too much stress on the rest of these. So you want to turn one of the early ones, and this one is one that you can actually touch. So that all seems pretty good. Gonna put just a little dab here, a little dab here, a little dab there. What kind of color Trinitron is it, Adam? Is it like an apple one? Put a small drop. I need to get a newer thing that's even smaller for this kind of work. Then, since I put too much grease on, I like to go in and just give it a little dab, clean up some of that extra, or not grease, oil. Clean up some of that extra oil, make sure it doesn't get around all over things. Ultimately, I'll take this apart and really clean it up well, but you can see that, like on the worm drive, there's a bunch of goo on there. So I want to get all that stuff off there eventually. But this should be good enough to see if like the eject mechanism works. Yeah, so normally you want to put some lithium grease along the worm drive there. It works really nice. And yeah, that's what I'm using the lithium grease for that I put inside the eject gearbox. Adam, you probably have more experience than me on this, but it seems like these floppy drives don't like to work unless you put the metal cage around them. It seems like they have a lot of issues reading if they don't have that cage around them. Is that the case, or am I just being weird? don't really need the case on a 800K drive. Have you ever recapped a floppy? Do you know what the symptoms are that would make you think that you should recap one of these things? I haven't ever done a floppy, but I saw videos where they do it. And I don't know what the symptoms would be that would suggest that you need to recap your floppy. Let's try out this floppy. Let me grab a Mac SE. Be right back. Scuzzy. Oh, shoot, that's not the right cage for this. Alright, so we're not going to use the cage. Install the cage. Highly technical stand for testing things when I want to have a blue SCSI attached. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Especially when you put the wrong frame around them. Let's grab some electricity. So is that EMI coming through on my audio still when I turn on one of these things? I see a little bit on my mixer showing up. It doesn't seem like as bad as it was before. Oh, good. Slowly getting the hang of this streaming thing. Not that I'm quite comfortable with it yet, but oh, oh shit. Well, I just shorted something out on that floppy. Well, that was fun. Uh-oh. I pissed this thing off for real. Oh, I should have ended the stream when I had planned. Yeah, it's always interesting to figure out which point you should do the stream. I know there's a bunch of people that do really long ones, but I've been trying to keep them sort of short. I don't know. I shorted something on this floppy on the chassis, and it caused the system to reset. Okay. Well, it looks like it wasn't permanent, so that's good. The floppy shows up in the system. Oh, and it ejects. That's a nice eject noise. Alright, so let's see if I can copy something to the floppy. Copied something to the drive. Yeah, I'll probably have a spare 800K drive along here, along the way at some point here. I seem to have reasonably good luck with these 800K drives. I'm having terrible luck with the 1.44s. It sounds good, at least, this floppy. What's going on? This one sounds pretty good. Alright, so, well, that was something productive, I guess, for today's work. Cleaned up a floppy drive a little bit and made sure the eject mechanism was working good. Got all those systems torn down. At least I have a better sense of the work that needs to happen on all of those. Gonna have some nice weather here in the later parts of the week, so I'm probably gonna be doing some retro brighting. I've been having issues because it's spring and I'm in the Northeast and we haven't had a ton of sun. Yeah, I have two dual drive SEs and I'm looking forward to getting a blue SCSI set up internally so you can have two floppies and a blue SCSI. That would be a pretty cool setup. Indoor retro brighting. Are you using heat or just time? Or do you have a UV setup? Yeah, I've had issues trying to do the whole cases. Getting cases inside of a little some sort of container that holds them and totally submerges them has been proving difficult. I modified one that kind of works, but you can only do one at a time, so it's a slow process, especially without much sunlight. Submersion and UV light plus heat. And so how long does it take you to do a retro brighting on a whatever I guess it kind of depends on how bad it looks. Like, this particular Mac Plus was in decent shape to begin with, and it just needed a little bit of touch up on the side there, and so it only took like an afternoon. But you know, when you compare it to something like this, where I'm sure I'm gonna have to do a few days, do the Mac cases outside. Okay. Oh, the 2C cases. Yeah, I was thinking that I have a couple 2Es, but they're painted, so I don't think that would do much. I just noticed this. This one's been shot. What the heck? Oh, what happened in the lives of these old compact Macs? Alright, well, I think I'm gonna end this stream here today. Thanks for stopping by. Always good to see you, Adam. And thanks for everyone else that's stopped by. I want to thank everyone that's already subscribed to my channel. And so, yeah, look forward to some more Mac restorations in the near future and some other fun stuff. I kind of got hammered with real world stuff today, so I haven't had, or this week, so I haven't had much chance to do much. So this was the first time I've been able to spend some time on the big bad bench. So look forward to see y'all soon.